PSG want midfield improvement, Inter in a bit of a rush, Kane set to return, a transfer roundup, and the return of Friday feels, all coming up in the next few minutes. As I'm your host, Matt Froelich, you are the Onefootballers, and this is the Daily News. First off, PSG are looking for a midfield improvement, but alas, personally, in my opinion, I'm not so sure it's going to be enough to take them to the Champions League. First off, there's Pjanic, who is definitely catching the attention of quite a few other teams. Apparently, Chelsea are trying to bring him into the club and will offer Jorginho in return because it's well documented that Juventus have been looking at the Italian midfielder. But back to PSG, and Pjanic could be joining them along with Houssem Aouar from Lyon and alongside this Timu Bakayoko from Chelsea. Now, in my opinion, like we were speaking before about the Champions League, these are the kind of players that are going to come in, make PSG even better in Liga, but are they really, really good enough to make the difference in PSG, faltering at the quarterfinals and actually lifting Europe's biggest trophy? I'm not so sure. It's kind of like when they signed Sarabia from Sevilla last season. He's brilliant. He has a really good play. He had a really good season. He's been doing really well for PSG. But he's not exactly the kind of guy that's going to take them from this level to this level. That is reserved for the likes of Mbappe, Neymar, if they sign someone like Griezmann or Dembele. Those are the big players. I'm not saying the others are bad, they're just maybe not as good. In the case of Aouar, he could go on to be an unbelievable player. We've all seen his potential at Lyon. So don't get me wrong, that would be an incredible signing. I'm just not so sure just yet. Anyway, what it does represent, if they do that, is that PSG are actually making smart investments for the future rather than just going out and trying to put together some sort of super team that's going to win them the trophy. Anyway, moving on and to another name that's constantly been bandied around this summer, and it's another name who could be potentially leaving Syria, and it is Lautaro Martinez. And apparently, Inter Milan are getting pretty annoyed at the constant conversation. Just like I'm getting pretty annoyed about talking about it all the time. Both myself and Inter Milan are clearly hoping that the deal just gets done. The reason being is that Inter want to then plan for a future without Lautaro Martinez. On their hit list to replace the Argentinian are both Timo Werner and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. The problem is, the longer the Barcelona take to conclude a deal, well, by that time, Werner might have moved on. Aubameyang may have moved on or committed his future to Arsenal. The options will be getting less and less for Inter Milan, and they won't even know how much money they've got to play with until Barca finally put forward a good enough deal. Of course, this then also relies on Barcelona selling a few players first, so they've got the money to then go and spend the 111 million on the release clause that Inter Milan are looking for. But whether or not it's going to happen, obviously we're going to have to wait a little while because the transfer window isn't even open yet. I mean, Spanish and Italian football hasn't even returned, but that has not stopped Lionel Messi from heaping praise on his compatriot Lautaro Martinez by saying he is a complete forward and he is a great player. Now, when arguably, I always have to say that, the greatest of all time is calling you a pretty good player, probably be a wise decision to listen and potentially join him at his club. Of course, it all depends on a lot of money, which there isn't so much bounding around these days. But moving on, and to actually quite a feel-good story for one of the lower league teams in England, and that comes in the form of Leyton Orient. They were actually the team that gave Harry Kane his first professional start. The Spurs striker was on loan at the club, and he's now decided to repay the faith in the club by sponsoring their shirts for next season. This is absolutely unheard of and the first kind of a deal. Kane has said there will be a thank you message to the NHS on the home kit of Leyton Orient, and on the away kit and the third kit there will be 2 further sponsorships to mental health charities. Along with this, Kane was speaking about his return to football. Now, this, of course, is music to all Spurs fans' ears, as they are currently 7 points behind Chelsea in the race for the Champions League. They're obviously in competition with a hell of a lot of other teams, and there's 9 games to go. But the good news is that Kane said he'll be fit for the return of the season. Since tearing a ligament in his hamstring on the New Year's Day against Southampton, the England captain has been out of business. But this break in football has actually given him time to recover, and he'll be fit and firing by the time the season resumes. Now, for those of you saying, Spurs are better without Kane, absolute rubbish. This is complete and utter nonsense. It was a myth that came about last year because when Kane was injured, yet again, because he always seems to be injured, Spurs managed to put together a half-decent run of results with late wins against like Burnley, Watford and Newcastle. They managed to scrape past those teams and put together a half-decent run of form. That definitely does not justify Spurs being better without one of the best strikers in the world and England's captain. So no, they're not better without him. Him coming back is pretty good news for Tottenham. But talking of Spurs, we now move into the rest of the day's transfer and news roundup that you might have missed. And their defender, Juan Foyth, is apparently a target for Leeds United should they get promoted to the Premier League. Leicester City are interested in Botafogo star Luis Enrique. The Premier League, La Liga and Serie A are all hoping for a return to footballing action in mid-June. And lastly but not least, Marseille is heading into a bit of turmoil. The sporting director Andoni Zubizarreta has left the club, as well as there being growing fears that Andre Villas-Boas could follow him out of the door. So finally, lastly but not least, we come to Friday Feels. It is back. Because the football is back. The Bundesliga is returning this weekend and, well, it's just great news for every football fan. If you haven't decided which team to pick just yet, well, have a look at this weekend's fixtures and take which one ever suits your fancy. Now, you guys know how Friday Feels goes. This is where you can leave your predictions for the weekend's football in the comment section down below. Doesn't have to be a score, could be a goal, a red card, heck, a number of offsides. Who cares? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Very quickly though, one person who won't be returning to football is Augsburg coach Heiko Herrlich, who's now imposed himself under strict rules of quarantine because he left the team hotel to go and buy some toothpaste. Utterly ridiculous. Anyway, on with the Friday Feels. And first off, in the derby game between Dortmund and Schalke this weekend, I think Jadon Sancho is going to find the back of the net because he normally does. Next up, and I think Gladbach's top four hopes are going to take a big hit with a loss to Eintracht Frankfurt. And lastly but not least, Bayern are going to return to action with another thumping win. I'm backing them to score at least 4 goals in a victory over Union Berlin. So there you have it, Friday Feels has returned. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below and your thoughts on the rest of today's daily news. Whilst you're at it, smash the like button and click here or here to check out all of the other videos we've got going on Onefootball. But until next time, have a great weekend, enjoy the football, and I'll see you guys later.